One prophecy, 3 cats, 6 books, and one long road to nowhere. The Power of 3 promised so much, yet ultimately delivered so little. This isn't to say that it's bad or devoid of merit. On the contrary, it has objectively the best character ever in the history of the universe. And not only does it have one great protagonist, it actually has 2. And while the third protagonist is typically pretty bland and unmemorable, the best 2 by far carry the arc all on their own. The 2 I'm referring to, of course, are Jayfeather and Lionblaze.
Fucking bullshit! Oh, son of a bitch!
I've spent the majority of my videos talking about the first arc of Warriors, and the reason for that isn't because it's the only one with cool ideas or well-written characters. What really separates the original arc from the rest of the series is the way it ties everything together and conveys multiple overarching ideas and themes. If you've watched my videos on Scourge or Firestar, then you know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't watch all of my videos and give me money on patreon.com/lizardwizard, I'll give you a quick rundown. Into the Wild opens up with Rusty, aka Firepaw, aka Fireheart, aka Firestar, aka the guy who's not a Mary Sue because he fantasizes about cheating on his mate, Gosh, contemplating leaving his safe, predictable existence as a house cat for that of a warrior. Bluestar explains the choice pretty well, basically saying to Rusty that a warrior's life is harder, harsher, and deadlier than that of a kitty pet, yet as a warrior he'll ultimately live a more fulfilling and adventurous life surrounded by caring, like-minded clanmates. In addition, being a warrior is a more honorable and spiritually wholesome life, not because it's simply more natural, but because it infuses a sophisticated ethical code and religious establishment into the natural aspects of it. It's the same sort of spirit of the 19th century transcendentalist movement in the United States, where people like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau rejected the burgeoning modern society brought about by the market revolution, and instead sought to find meaning and fulfillment by immersing themselves in nature. However, they didn't do so because they were a bunch of godless, pot-smoking hippies, just like the Warrior Cats aren't a bunch of brutal savages in a way that an outsider like Firestar's friend Smudge would think. Through nature, the Transcendentalists came to appreciate life, morality, and God. In the same vein, through nature and life as a warrior, Firestar also comes to better understand and appreciate life, morality, and religion. All of this culminates in the final book, where Firestar and the Clan Cats emerge victorious against the forces of evil operating against the will of the Warrior Code and StarClan. Here, at the end of the arc, not only has Firestar improved as a person through the Code and StarClan, but they've proven themselves to be the ultimate source of salvation in both a mortality sense and a spiritual one. In short, throughout the arc and its conclusion, characters who abide by the Warrior Code and StarClan are ultimately rewarded, while those who walk outside of it suffer, such as Cloudpaw when he gets kidnapped, or Tigerstar when he gets sliced open by a manlet edgelord who listens to MCR. In the end, the righteous are rewarded with a fulfilling life and or a comforting afterlife, unlike the wicked ones such as Tigerstar and Brokenstar. The point is that by the end of the Darkest Hour, the arc has reached a complete narrative conclusion, both in plot and theming. By contrast, the Power of 3 ends on a complete cliffhanger without any clear direction or conflict. This isn't an inherently bad thing, and even as it stands, it works pretty well. The problem is that unlike with the original arc, there's a lack of closure with regards to its thematic narrative. You might even be asking yourself right now, what is the thematic narrative of the Power of 3? I think there's actually a pretty strong one that was set up and kindled all throughout the books, which I'll go into in a minute, but I'm more inclined to think that it was either accidental or secondary to Erin Hunter's main goal with the arc. So if it wasn't a narrative, what exactly was the point of the Power of 3? Recent revelations by the series' main architect, Vicky Holmes, seem to confirm that the inspiration for the arc was not a particular message or conclusion, but rather a specific moment. In her words, "The whole of the third series was spun from a single scene that came to me very early on. A cat standing on the edge of a cliff, surrounded by flames, telling another cat, 'Go ahead, kill them. They are not my children. They mean nothing to me. As far as I can remember, I wasn't even aware that this was Squirrelflight and Jay, Lion, and Holly when the scene first appeared in my head. All I knew was the strength of the she-cat's desperation, that she would say literally anything to save the life of these kits because even though she was not their biological mother, she loved them more than life itself. I also knew that the kits and the cat she was addressing had no idea whatsoever, and that by saying this, the she-cat was destroying something very precious. All I had to do was work backwards and figure out who was speaking and what had led to this astonishing situation. There was so much feeling going on in all 5 cats present that I knew unraveling the scene both before and after would take up 6 books. Rather than serving a thematic role, the characters and events in the Power of 3 arc are built up to eventually crescendo into a gut-wrenching and emotionally powerful scene. To the author's credit, they absolutely succeeded in this. I was so invested in the story and characters at this point that I was utterly blown away by the revelation in this scene, to the point that I can remember the exact time and place I was in while reading it almost a decade ago. Vicky stresses the importance of the feeling of this scene, which is something that I can appreciate as an analyst who typically first connects with writing and film on an intuitive and emotional level. The entire arc is spent building the plot and characters in such a way that this same sense of feeling that Vicky created was conveyed not only to the characters, but to the reader as well. At this point in the arc, both the characters and the reader are all on the same page. Jayfeather, Hollyleaf, Lionblaze, and the reader are all full steam ahead in trying to understand and find a use for the powers of the prophecy. We're all so focused on this extraordinary situation that the other characters and comparatively mundane conflicts are all lost in the background. So when Ashfur betrays Squirrelflight and forces her to reveal her secret about the 3, everybody experiences a narrative car crash. In a single instant, we're ripped away from the fantastical abstract world of prophecy and powers, back down to earth with simple family drama. Both the characters and reader have essentially been ignoring the family dynamic. It's something everyone just took for granted. So when it's radically altered so suddenly, it's totally disorienting. The entire prophecy of the Power of 3 was one big red herring meant to consume all of our attention so that the characters and reader together feel the full, devastating impact of Squirrelflight's revelation. Herein lies the fundamental flaw with the Power of 3 arc and why it just barely fails to live up to the greatness of the original one. While the emotions and fallout from this sudden plot twist are both satisfying and fascinating to read, there's little in this facet that thematically connects Long Shadows and Sunrise to the previous 4 books of the series. What exactly is the message to be gained from all of this? That mistakes and secrets have long-term, permanent consequences? This is certainly true in that Leafpool is punished initially for not being able to have a relationship with her own children, to now being despised by them when they learn the truth. The same can be said of Squirrelflight and Brambleclaw, who lost the relationship they had with their surrogate children and additionally saw their own relationship break apart. Then of course, this revelation leads Hollyleaf to murder Ashfur and then essentially herself as she self-destructs within her own imploding universe. In a similar vein to Anakin Skywalker, Hollyleaf's sudden transformation in turn threatens to destroy the entire prophecy she's involved in and throws the entire storyline for a loop. Characters, relationships, and hope are all but totally destroyed because of one bad decision and cover-up by Leafpool and Squirrelflight. All that being said, it's a pretty powerful and dare I say mature sort of message. The problem with the Power of 3 though is not that this is a bad message, but rather that it has 2 of them that divide the arc and make it thematically inconsistent. Allow me to explain. At the very beginning of the site, Firestar is seen receiving the prophecy. There will be 3, kin of your kin, who hold the power of the stars in their paws. It's quickly revealed that the 3 cats mentioned are Jayfeather, Lionblaze, and Hollyleaf, much to Firestar's despair. You might be thinking, why is Firestar so worried about them? Shouldn't he be happy that there are ThunderClan cats involved in a prophecy, especially one that states they'll be really powerful? Well, no, and while I didn't quite understand what this prophecy implies when I first read it, I now can see where Firestar's fears are coming from. As a kid, I always read this line, who hold the power of the stars in their paws, to essentially mean that the 3 hold the fate of the stars, i.e. StarClan, in their paws, which to me indicated that they were good guys here to save the day from evil forces. However, the word fate is not used here because that's not what the prophecy prophecy is referring to. It literally means that these 3 cats will be so powerful that their powers will rival and or be of StarClan. When you consider how hard it was for Firestar to overcome foes like Tiger Star, Broken Star, and Scourge, whose power was entirely based in the physical, i.e. their own fighting ability and the number of cats under their control, it's easy to see why he would be frightened by potential foes with a spiritual component to their strength. After all, as I just went over, it was Firestar's own faith in the power of StarClan that allowed him to triumph over these foes. If that very power was being channeled for evil, it's unlikely that Firestar or anyone else would be able to challenge it. This is the true theme of the Power of 3. Power, and the danger there is in wielding it. While great power can be used to do great things, more often than not, it serves as a corrupting force rather than a correcting one. The famous axiom of Lord Acton states, "Power tends to corrupt," and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is the main thing that separated the American Revolution from both the French and Russian revolutions. Whereas the founding fathers and framers of the Constitution saw power as an inevitably corrupting force and thus sought to constrain it, both the Jacobin and Bolshevik factions believed that they could wield absolute power for the greater good. As a result, both the Jacobin and Bolshevik regimes enacted greater acts of tyranny and evil than those of the previous regimes which they had sought to oppose. By contrast, the framers created a far more stable and benevolent form of government that has far outlasted both of them. I can't help but think that there's a sort of moral justice in the universe in the fact that the fundamentally humble and free society triumphs both physically and morally over the fundamentally arrogant and coercive ones. You see the same theme of power in other literature, such as J.R.R. Tolkien's famous Lord of the Rings series. There, the One Ring both literally and metaphorically represents the manifestation of absolute power. The allure of its power corrupts all around it, even the seemingly benign and selfless Frodo who seeks to destroy it. People like Boromir and Faramir of Gondor both see the ring as a power they could use to protect their people from evil, yet both would undoubtedly fall to its corruptive nature, thus negating any beneficial impact it might have had. This is exactly the kind of story Erin Hunter sets up in The Power of 3, and the characters are absolutely perfect for it. Or more accurately, perfectly imperfect. Jayfeather is an arrogant and disillusioned character forced into a role in life that he never wanted. Hollyleaf is obsessively driven to find a true calling that would both make her important and beneficial to her clan. Not only does she want the best for ThunderClan, but she wants to have a noteworthy role. And finally, there's Lionblaze, who seeks to both excel in his dream role as a warrior and as the legacy of his accomplished father and grandfather. All of the 3 have different attitudes and desires, yet they're all fundamentally the same in that they're all treading through life, unsure of their place, and that they see these great powers they have as the key to fulfilling their destinies. In this sense, the Power of 3 is a total inversion of the original arc. Whereas Firestar found his destiny and meaning through working to understand and accept a power in StarClan that he was neither given nor controlled, Jayfeather, Hollyleaf, and Lionblaze see their destiny in the power of StarClan that was bestowed upon them rather than earned. There's a fundamental danger in the latter condition, since there's no discipline or humility instilled in the 3, who were given the power without ever earning it. This was one of the main themes of Michael Crichton's famous novel Jurassic Park, in which John Hammond and his head scientist Henry Wu irresponsibly advanced genetic technology in order to clone dinosaurs to use in their theme park. Both of them focus entirely on how to use their power rather than on the nature of it. As a result of their arrogance, the dinosaurs behave in ways that they're absolutely unprepared for, and they lose control over their creations. The Power of 3 was perfectly set up to handle this sort of story, and even in later books, it was on the right track. The character of Soul was the perfect corruptive force for the 3, one who could trick them into doing terrible things under the guise of teaching them how to properly understand and utilize their powers. There's also plenty of tension as the 3 struggle with the burden of the prophecy. What should they be doing? Who are their loyalties toward? Who can they trust? And what is this all about anyway? What the story seemed to be building up to was a choice each character would have to make going forward with regards to their power. Would they be benign or controlling, benevolent or malevolent? Would they work for themselves, each other, their clans, or someone else entirely? From here, we could have had a really strong conclusion. Maybe they all choose to give up their powers as a way to avoid corruption. clan. They could also use their powers to overcome some sort of villainous force on behalf of the clans and then choose to give them up, in the same vein as George Washington or Cincinnatus. And then of course, one or all of them could turn fucking evil, leading to the main conflict coming from within the three themselves. I personally think this final option is the most interesting and is probably what should have happened. Instead, of course, the storyline is completely dropped in the final book, and while the tangent it goes on is pretty interesting, it doesn't in any way connect to this theme of power and corruption. What's frustrating is it didn't need to be this way. You could have had the whole revelation and fallout be exactly the same, but instead of having Hollyleaf just run away from her problems, those problems should have brought about a change that causes her to snap and transform as a character. Many people, including myself, have assumed that Hollyleaf did in fact have a power and that it was one relating to control. Specifically, she was perhaps meant to harness the more supernatural powers of her brothers to bring about a desirable conclusion. However, what if Hollyleaf turned evil? Tennille Flowers and I came up with an alternative storyline a while ago, which would see Hollyleaf essentially using her power to control her brothers as a means to further her own power, which in her mind would be for the greater good. Specifically, we envisioned a scenario in which Jayfeather and Hollyleaf have a great power struggle from within ThunderClan, each of them trying to control their neutral brother Lionblaze and his incredible fighting abilities for their own causes. It would work especially well if Hollyleaf had become deputy or leader, while Jayfeather was head medicine cat. Essentially, ThunderClan would be destroyed from within by its two highest positions of authority, all in the name of collecting power meant to help the clan. A classic tragedy filled with the irony and hypocrisy of the intentions and results of the main character's actions. In the end, the struggle would lead to one or both of Jayfeather and Hollyleaf's demise, which would both serve as a great thematic and narrative conclusion to the arc, as well as give Lionblaze's character a little more importance and make up for his weaker personality and motivations by factoring them into his position of power in the story as more of a pawn rather than a player. It could even be a pivotal moment for him in which he fully self-actualizes and grows into the role of a leader that both his father and grandfather had achieved. Regardless, everything wraps up in an original and compelling manner. The story of the three would be both consistent and concluded. And that, my friends, is how you fix the power of three, without fundamentally changing the story, Vicky's vision, or even having to deal with the narrative train wreck that was Omen of the Stars. Or even having to deal with the narrative train wreck that was Omen of the Stars. Omen of the Stars. Omen of the Stars.
I will render you a toothless, crying heap of a man. I am pissed off, and I want to fight!
I know I've let you down. I've been a fool to myself. I thought that I could live for no one else.
I hate you. I hate your guts.
I just keep letting me down, letting me down, letting me down.
While the power of three still holds a special place in my heart, I can't help but feel fascinated more by what could have and should have been in it rather than the final content itself. Even so, many of the problems of this arc could have been fixed by simply refocusing the narrative of Omen of the Stars. That's a video for another time and maybe another person though. I hope if nothing else that by looking at the flaws with the power of three, we can all come to appreciate both the impact that themes can have on a story, as well as the triumph of the original arc in conveying a powerful and complete thematic message.